Okay, started, Councillor.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Bromford and Hodge Hill Ward Forum. This evening's meeting is a crime special. We've got guests with us, Simon Foster, who's the Police and Crime Commissioner for the West Midlands, who was elected in May this year. And we also have two of our local PCSOs, Sarah Johnston and Maggie Grovska. Right. So I just need to remind you that this meeting is being recorded for future, and it will be available on the Birmingham City website for future record. First of all, we'll start with Simon, who's going to give us a presentation around his role as a Police and Crime Commissioner and the work that he's been carrying out over the last 6 months or so. Following that, he will take questions and answers from residents. So what we'll do, we'll take questions in groups of 3. So if people want to ask Simon a question afterwards, if they can just type into the chat, there's a chat facility, and then if you put speak into the chat, and then we know which order the questions are arriving in. Okay, is everybody familiar with Teams? Okay, we also have Steve Baker, who's from the police too. He's with us.
Hello there.
Good evening. Right, so if we start with Simon Foster. Simon, if you'd like to start your presentation. You're on mute, Simon.
There you go. That's why I never put myself on mute, because for exactly that reason. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to meet you all this evening. Sorry we can't meet in person, but thanks very much for the invitation, and particularly to Diane, and the opportunity to speak to you all. Events like this, I think, are really important because community safety, policing, crime and criminal justice are matters that are of significant public concern and interest. And today I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the work that I've been doing since I was elected, because I know that you'll have some comments and questions, and I'll of course do my best to respond to those. Just very briefly, my background, for those of you who don't know, is that I started my legal career 42 years ago, and I practiced as a legal aid solicitor for 35 years until, of course, I was elected on the 8th of May and officially took office as West Midlands Police and Crime Commissioner on the 13th of May. The role of a Police and Crime Commissioner is one that's not always well understood. It's not about operational day-to-day policing, because that's the responsibility of the Chief Constable. You're elected to represent the people, of course, not the police. It's about democratic accountability and ensuring the police provide an effective and efficient police service for the benefit of the people and communities of the West Midlands. And in simple terms, a Police and Crime Commissioner has 3 duties. Firstly, to prepare a police and crime plan. Secondly, set the police budget, including the council tax precept, which is that part of your council tax that goes towards local policing. And thirdly, hold the Chief Constable and the police service to account on behalf of the people. In addition to that, there is also the power to appoint and dismiss the Chief Constable. So it's a statutory duty of a Police and Crime Commissioner to prepare a police and crime plan, and that's important because the Chief Constable has to have regard to the plan, and it can be used to hold the police service to account on behalf of the people of the West Midlands. And since I officially took office, I've been consulting on and working towards the preparation of a new West Midlands Police and Crime Plan. I kicked that process off on the 13th of May, which is the very first day that I took office. We launched a call for evidence, and over the next 5 months, we had an extensive and wide-ranging consultation across the West Midlands. And I'm pleased to announce that we officially launched the new West Midlands Police and Crime Plan on the 1st of November. The plan's based on the manifesto on which I was democratically elected. However, it's also crucially been informed by and has had regard to the public consultation. And it's because of that, I believe, it reflects the needs, priorities and objectives of the people of the West Midlands. The plan has a particular focus on, firstly, rebuilding community policing, secondly, combating violence against women and girls and domestic abuse, thirdly, tackling and reducing violent crime, including knife crime, fourthly, prevention, early intervention and addressing the underlying causes of crime, and finally, the need for that essential partnership work, particularly with local communities. I believe the plan's a comprehensive agenda for change, development and progress in policing, rebuilding community policing, putting prevention at the heart of what we do, and ultimately delivering justice, safety and security for all of the people and communities of the West Midlands. About 3 weeks ago, I launched a campaign for fair funding for the West Midlands, because between 2010 and 2019, West Midlands Police lost £175 million in funding and 2,221 police officers. That was 25% of our police officers. And whilst we're due to receive a net increase of 1,200 police officers by 2023, that will still leave the force with a shortfall of 1,000 officers in terms of where it was back in 2010. And we've also an unfair national police funding formula that is unfit for purpose and which disproportionately disadvantages West Midlands Police in the sum of about £40 million a year. The government started a review of how police funding is distributed between forces across the country, and I've therefore written to all MPs in the West Midlands to ask them to join me in a cross-party campaign calling on the government to reinstate our 1,000 missing police officers and to provide adequate and fair funding for West Midlands Police. And I'm urging all of our West Midlands MPs to please kindly join me in a cross-party campaign to ensure West Midlands Police receives the funding it needs to return officer numbers back to 2010 levels, and that any changes to the national police funding formula actually result in a deal that will ensure adequate and fair funding for West Midlands Police. I want to build a strong, united voice, and that's why I'm asking all MPs in the West Midlands cross-party to join me in that campaign to ensure justice, safety and security for all of the people and communities of the West Midlands that we represent. Community policing, for me, is the bedrock of British policing. It embodies that principle of policing by consent on which policing in our country is built. Over the last 10 years, it's been dismantled. I believe as a consequence of ill-advised, misconceived and poor decision-making on the part of successive central governments. In 2010, in the West Midlands, we had 1,800 police officers allocated to community policing, but by 2018, we had just 700. I think that was a big mistake. It was counterproductive and it was a false economy, and we've all been paying the price. We need that preventative, proactive, problem-solving and visible community policing. And I'll begin the crucial work of rebuilding community policing to keep our communities safe and secure. And as a start on my mission to rebuild community policing, it's my intention to work with the Chief Constable to put 450 additional officers into neighbourhood policing, so as to strengthen the local bonds between the public and the police, so as to improve our ability to proactively solve local issues before they become critical problems. These police officers will be distributed across the West Midlands, including in Bromford and Hodge Hill. Finally, as I said during the course of my campaign, I want to be a People and Communities Police and Crime Commissioner, and that's a commissioner who engages with, listens to and works with the people and communities of the West Midlands. And that's why, since I was elected, I've attended many community events across the West Midlands, just like this, and I'll continue to do so, because ultimately it doesn't matter how effective our police service is, our statutory organisations, third sector or elected representatives. We can't solve the big issues that matter unless we engage with, listen to and work with communities. And policing has to be done with people and communities, not to people and communities. And in this country, we call that policing by consent. And I reiterate, my top priority will always be justice, safety and security for all of our people and communities in the West Midlands. I'm happy to have a discussion and take any questions. I would just add that very happy to be here talking to the people of Hodge Hill. Hodge Hill was in fact the first place I lived in when I first moved to Birmingham way back in 1986. Lived in Southbourne Avenue, so I've got fond memories of Hodge Hill, and it's always great to come back and to speak to the people and communities of Hodge Hill. So thanks ever so much. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Simon. It's always a pleasure to have you in Hodge Hill. Yeah, the missing police officers, it's been noticeable recently, so I think there'll be a lot of members of the community that would like to ask questions around, of the various issues. I can see that Nigel's got his hand up. I'm just looking for other people who want to ask questions. So I'll start off with Nigel Harris. Good evening, Nigel.
Whoops, good evening. Can you all hear me okay?
Just about, yes.
Just about. Okay. Yeah, hi Simon,
Yeah,
thanks very much for joining us. I live in Eastbourne Avenue, so I've lived there off and on since 1964. So I'm surprised we must have bumped into each other at some point, I suppose. Yeah, I'm back in Hodge Hill, back in Eastbourne Avenue, and I have to say that I have no faith in the police whatsoever anymore. I'm 57 years old. I would expect better. I've contacted the police on many occasions and been told either that it's not the police job, it's the council's job, or been told to go somewhere else. And then eventually, I mean, Diane, we've spoken about this, about the tree and what have you. Okay, and then eventually, once it goes via the council, it eventually comes back, and then I get a phone call from the police to say, "Oh, we're investigating this." Well, either you are investigating it or you're not investigating it, and there seems to be a very grey area as to what the police do, what they think they do, what they should do, where their boundaries are, and really what they should be doing, because we're just getting fobbed off most of the time. It only seems to be when the council get involved that then the police end up getting involved. And it shouldn't be like that. We should have faith that we can contact the police and they're going to investigate something. Now, when we walk the dog around the block at the moment, every single time I walk up Coleshill Road or Stetchford Road, I see cars overtaking each other, speeding on the wrong side of the road, and it's just lawless behaviour. Now, I see this every single day that we go out. Nothing is done about it. There's never any police around. I appreciate that the problems with the government, and I absolutely agree with you, it's shameful, but it's lawless. There's nobody there to stop it, and I see it every day. So if I see it every day, why is there nothing being done about it? Why is nobody else seeing it? And why is there no speed bumps, or why is there no traffic calming measures in Hodge Hill?
Thank you, Nigel.
Thanks very much for that, Nigel. I mean, obviously, I can't comment on all the level of detail in connection with the particular matters that you refer to there. But I mean, you focused in particular, I think, in relation to the issue of speeding. I mean, I'm familiar. You know, I'm aware that that there are cars passing through Bromford, travelling between the city centre and Erdington via the Spine Road and A38, and I know that is linked to street racing. There is a force-wide operation that is in place to deal with that issue. I mean, referred to as Op Hercules, and that's a force operation that's managed by the Central Motorway Police Group and supported by local points of contact. I mean, I don't know how that is operating in your particular area, day in, day out, week in, week out. I mean, it's probably something that could be better answered in operational terms by the local officers who are on the call. But I mean, in terms of general
the problem seems to be, though, Simon, is that there was a lady that was almost killed recently. I think she lived on Coleshill Road, At that point, there was the police put the lines across the road to measure the speed cameras. It took something to happen before that happened. Now, nothing's happened since then. And what you're talking about is way away. Nothing has happened. Stetchford Road, Coleshill Road is terrible for speed all the time. It needs something doing. And we hear all this rhetoric about, oh, there's something going on down the road. But we need it in the Coleshill Road and Stetchford Road before somebody gets killed.
Can I just come in there?
Yeah, sure, Steve. Yeah.
I just wanted to sort of, is it Nigel? Sorry.
It is, yes.
Yeah, sorry, Nigel. You know these incidents that you say that you're seeing every day. Have you reported them every day?
No, because I'm fed up of spending time on this chat room thing online, and then nothing happens because they go, oh, it's not. You need to contact the council.
The problem that will
I'm just fobbed off all the time, and I'm not going to do it anymore. I've given up.
Okay.
To be perfectly honest, and that's.
Can I just come in a second? Obviously, we rely on the public to report incidents. Obviously, we can't be everywhere all the time and on every particular road. However, we do rely on the public to report these matters to us. Now, if you're saying that you don't report them, we may not necessarily find out about it. That's the problem that we're going to have. I know you've had previous.
But with due respect, it's there all the time, and I'm not working for the police. I shouldn't have to report to you every single day. I have other things to do as well, and it's not something which should be put on us. It's not. You can't pin that blame on the public's not telling us.
Well, I mean, we do rely on members of the public to report crime to us in lots of various means. That, you know, that is the way that crime does come to our attention. So we do rely on that.
But that's such a reactive way to work. That doesn't work.
I mean, yeah, there are traffic operations, the CMPG, but as I said, we rely on members of the public to come forwards to us and say, listen, there's a problem in my local area, and if it appears to be consistent in what's coming in, then we can put traffic operations in place. That's generally how it works. Obviously, working on a local neighbourhood team, we only have a certain amount of officers, and we generally have jobs ongoing every single day. So we can't, just with regards to doing proactive patrols with regards to traffic, that's a small part of our role, and we can't be there all the time.
Nigel, I don't know. I don't know if there's any local speed watch operations taking place in the area, and whether there's been any efforts to set those up.
I can answer that, Simon. Yeah, we have organised street watches. We are organising future speed watches as well. Yeah, but we can't be there 24/7. That's the issue.
Yeah. But I mean, you know, that is a useful contribution to being able to monitor that issue of speeding. And I have to say, Nigel, that frustration around speeding, you know, particularly in residential areas, is West Midlands wide. I mean, you know, throughout the entire period of my campaign, you know, over about 2.5 years, I have to say that that was one issue that came up. Didn't matter whether you were in Solihull, Coventry, Wolverhampton, Sandwell, Dudley, Birmingham or Walsall. That issue and frustration around excess speed in residential areas was a common refrain, I can assure you. And, you know, real deep-seated frustration around it. Right across the West Midlands.
Is there something that the council can do then, Diane?
Sorry, what? Yeah.
Is there something more that the council can do? Is there something, speed calming measures that can be introduced? Because there needs to be something else. We
have looked at speed calming measures for Stetchford Road. And the way the law is, there has to be so many incidents in a year. We've got funding, and we are looking at putting pedestrian islands in Stetchford Road. We've looked. There are cameras that got on the Bradford Road, which are the average speed cameras. They are successful on the main roads, but the only thing is they drive the traffic onto the side roads, and it increases incidents on the side roads. there's a lot of roads that have in Shard End that have seen an increase in traffic and more incidents in their side roads, but the main road is well, it seems to work on the main road.
Yeah, I mean,
we have to start somewhere.
Many people I've spoken to will say that, you know, average speed cameras are certainly part of the solution to the problem. I mean, unfortunately, it then comes down to an issue of resources, because, I mean, there has been a pilot running, I think, for the past 5 years in Birmingham, whereby Birmingham City Council funded, I think, six average speed camera enforcement areas around Birmingham, and Birmingham City Council were responsible for installing and maintaining them, and West Midlands Police were responsible for enforcing them. I mean, my understanding is that pilot is in the process of being written up, and I mean, you know, there are some proposals wanting to extend that project around average speed cameras around Birmingham. The difficulty around this is that, you know, some years ago, the government, in its wisdom, back in about 2012-13, decided to effectively redirect the revenue stream from enforcement away from local government towards central government. Again, seems to me that was an entirely misconceived and ill-advised decision, because effectively it took away the the financial wherewithal for local authorities to be able to install average speed cameras, because the revenue then went to central government, and you know, is then not immediately and obviously reinvested into local communities. And you know, for me, it's certainly in my plan that I will make it my business to support local retention of income that comes from speeding fines, because I do think in turn that would improve road safety and support denying those people who want to engage in excess speed along residential roads. And you know, it is, let's face it, it is basically just a form of antisocial behaviour, that form of excess speed on our residential roads.
But it feels to me that that's the kind of support that the police need, is the council to back them up, so they don't have to be monitoring traffic all the time. Because if there's something permanent there that doesn't cost anything, if it's speed calming measures must be cheaper than having speed cameras, and it's a permanent fixture, then surely that's the cheaper, less, you know, a solution that needs less maintenance.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt, Nigel, it's one of these classic situations in which you need that partnership working. You know, whether that's between local communities in terms of implementing speed watch schemes, it's the police, it's Highways England in some instances, and it's local authorities. And you do need, and it might be the West Midlands Combined Authority in some instances as well. So you do need that essential partnership working around this sort of issue if we're going to be able to address it successfully, I think.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you know, the police in and of themselves are not going to be able to solve excess speed in residential areas across the entirety of the West Midlands, plainly.
No, they're not. I think it's too much to expect. Yeah.
Simon, can I ask a question? Do you ever think we'll see the day when black boxes come into being for all drivers on the road as a way of controlling speed?
Ooh. Right. Well, I mean, I certainly, I don't know about, yeah, well, I certainly think whether it would be via black boxes or not, I don't know. I think, I mean, I guess there's only two ways that immediately spring to mind that would happen. I mean, either as a result of primary legislation via Parliament, making it mandating it. Number one. Number two, car manufacturers deciding to install them. Well, number three, you know, insurers effectively beginning to mandate it through car insurance policies. But notwithstanding that, I mean, you know, there is technology at the moment, you know, that is increasingly available around, you know, GPS trackers. Don't ask me to explain the technology. I wouldn't be able to. But there is potentially, via GPS, an ability to be able to start imposing speed limits around that technology in order to slow cars down to the requisite speed limits in the areas around. And I know that some motor manufacturers are starting to install those in a limited sort of way. I know that Volvo and Renault, I think, have started to implement that. There was a European, I think, directive back in 2019, which, notwithstanding Brexit, I think the UK government has said that they will adopt that. Not exactly clear how they're going to implement that at the moment, and whether it's going to be advisory or it'll operate in a mandatory fashion in order to slow cars down to the mandatory speed limit in any given particular area. But I do think that may well be something that will be an area of technology that will continue to be implemented. I have to say, I went. I had the honour of being invited to speak at the Road Peace World Remembrance Day for victims of road traffic collisions at St Martin's in the Bullring a couple of Sundays ago, and it was it was an immensely moving ceremony, and it really did bring home to me, the catastrophic and devastating consequences of people who choose not to exercise their duty of care to other road users and drive at excess speed, and the consequences of that for the individuals concerned, their families, it certainly served notice on me to want to redouble my efforts around this. And we really need to take road danger reduction seriously, because I think anyone who sat through that service for a couple of hours would see just how important it is that we take this really seriously.
Just picking up on that, sorry, Diane. You said earlier that there has to be a number of accidents before the council will install anything. Can we get them to relook at that and say, let's not wait until a certain number of people die before we do something? Let's do something now.
We could campaign on. Yeah. I know because I had it on my road. I live on a black spot. There was one the other night. 2 cars collided. It's a regular occurrence, and I've tried myself, but I've seen how difficult it is to get like speed cameras or anything installed. You have to jump through a lot of hoops to get it done. So I'm happy to campaign on changing the legislation.
And the thing is, Diane, ultimately that, in one sense, the rationale behind that is a form of rationing, isn't it? Because effectively, what it's saying is that, rightly or wrongly, it's not possible to have the resources to put, for example, average speed cameras on all residential roads. So how are we going to allocate what are scarce resources? And ultimately, the way that ends up being done is to, in accordance with KSI's, killed and seriously injured stats around, particular accident black spots. And that's the way the resources end up being allocated. But you're right, Nigel. It is a sense of frustration that one feels that rather than engaging in prevention, the system ends up operating around reaction rather than prevention. And we all know that fundamentally prevention is always better than having to deal with the consequences of excess speed in this instance.
Okay, thank you, Simon. I'll move on to Mohammed Nazir, who's had his hand up for a while now. Mohammed, would you like to ask you a question?
Yes, thank you. Just following on, obviously, from what Nigel said, it is obviously sometimes the duty of us to obviously report those incidents. But if we had any patrol officers, I'm sure they would generally see quite quickly how often these kind of reckless and speeding drivers are going around. I mean, as he said, he sees it every day. I see it every day. And so if we've got patrol officers, I'm not sure. I think that begs the question of how many patrol officers do we have in Hodge Hill? Because if they are driving around for any length of time, I'm sure they will obviously see that type of reckless driving and all those kind of incidents that we see on the streets every day occurring. But my question generally is about the kind of crime and the apprehension of local residents currently, because there's been quite a number of videos shared recently between local residents about break-ins and attempted break-ins, many of them happening in the daytime, because the criminals, I think, have become so blasé about the lack of police presence that it's actually become normalized for them. And when I say many videos, so I mean, just the other day, I think in the last week, there were 2 incidents on Maryland Avenue, 1 incident on Eastbourne Avenue, and another incident on Bucklands and Lane. And so as a local resident, someone that's just part of a few WhatsApp groups, if I'm getting this kind of information and I'm seeing loads of these types of videos, and a relative of mine on Coleswood Road last year had the same incident in broad daylight. 4 masked people tried to break into the property. It begs the question that what is being done about it? What kind of resources are being kind of allocated to this type of situation and this type of crime? And actually, how are you going to reassure the residents? Because at this moment in time, my family doesn't feel safe if I'm not home. And I've obviously got to go to work and all those types of things. And not just my family, there's plenty of local families and local residents that are not feeling safe currently. And so what are we now as a kind of collective, police, council and residents, going to do about this going forward?
Is that a question for us specifically? Or?
Okay.
I think that's the question for, obviously, partly for the police, but also for the council, because I think we need, I think if we're saying, and I'm not sure what it is the response, but if we're saying there's literally 2, 3, 4 police officers on patrol in Hodge Hill in the entirety of Hodge Hill, I don't think it's enough. So what other, in terms of neighbourhood watch officers, in terms of neighbourhood watch, and in terms of kind of resident patrols, are there in terms of what can we do going forward? Because as I said, it's not a sustainable thing where people are waiting at home expecting someone to try to break in.
Yeah, I mean, I can come in there. I'm obviously aware of the recent spike in burglaries on the Hodge Hill areas, home invasions, that kind of thing. All I can tell you is that the teams across the constituency have been tasked with specific burglary patrols around the key hotspot areas and the attack locations. There has been a bid put in for additional resources with ops tasking. For CID are looking into the specific investigations. There's nothing specific that's come back with regards to those investigations. Checking the CCTV, it's not specifically one group or one gang. There are a number of different gangs operating. So we are looking at it. We're aware there's a spike. There are things like street watch that you can do as well, that you can set up with our local PCSOs. So there are things that play behind the scenes, and it's not something that's being ignored.
Street watch is excellent. I go out with the PCOs here. We do street watch, and we've done them across the ward, and it is growing.
Okay,
So,
thank you for that, and that's all fine. Obviously, there are things going on, but none of us as residents are aware of what's going on. None of us, I don't think, well, or a great many of us as residents are not aware of street watch or what that means or how we get involved in those types of issues.
Aware of, sorry to interrupt, are you aware of WM Now?
No.
Okay, so basically WM Now is basically where you can provide your email address and you will be given regular updates through West Midlands Police as to what's going on in your area. It's kind of an information exchange. So by all means, we can signpost you in the right direction, and you can sign up for WM Now, and then you'll be aware of what's going on in your area.
Okay, and yeah, and so that's good. So that we'll be informed about things. But as I said, I mean, you're saying there's things going on behind the scenes. Now, as residents, I don't feel reassured. I'm not sure about how the other people feel here, because all we hear generally, and obviously this is not your fault, but what we hear regularly is government cutbacks have meant we have less officers, which means we have less time and resources to do those things. Ultimately, that doesn't make me any safer in my home, or it doesn't make me feel any safer in my home. And what I'm really looking for is something tangible that I can say, actually, to my wife and to my family and to my friends, actually, this is what is being done in Hodge Hill, and this is hopefully going to stop because of X, Y, and Z initiatives. But I don't see them, I don't hear about them, and I don't really know what they currently are.
Okay. Are you on Twitter at all?
Yes.
Okay. You aware there's a Hodge Hill Police Twitter account as well?
No, I'm not. No.
Okay. So obviously that's the way, another way that you can follow exactly what we're doing on a daily basis. We put regular updates on there. So I don't know if you know, with regard to WM Now, if you're aware of what was going on, receiving emails, if you followed our Twitter account or just the general West Midlands Police Twitter account, then you'd have a sort of regular daily update as particular operations that we were doing or things that we're doing in your area. I'm not sure if that will provide you with some reassurance.
I hope so, depending on what is obviously on there. And in terms of obviously, like, I'm not sure what you can share in terms of statistics, but are you able to share how many break-ins there have been this year compared to last year? Are you able to share how much convictions or kind of I don't know, crime or incidents that you've been able to deal with and catch?
I mean, specific information here and now I haven't got at my fingertips to be able to provide to you, but obviously there's also Freedom of Information Act that you can access.
But is that information that you can provide, kind of, if we haven't, because I'm hoping this is not the first, I'm hoping this is not the last meeting we're going to have. So going forward into the next meeting, is that kind of information that you can kind of share with the group and obviously, hopefully, you know, provide us with
come in here. It's already information that I've requested, and we can share that via our Facebook and WhatsApp or various means. So if you go to Bromford and Hodge Hill News on Facebook, we'll as soon as we get the stats off the police, then we'll share the information and share about the WM Now and any other information that the police can pass on. We can share it with residents. So that should, you know, keep you better informed.
Okay.
A lot of residents have set up WhatsApp groups for their road, and you know, if there's anything going on, they'll just put a message out on WhatsApp. I know a couple of roads who've got it, and they share information on the road, and that's been helpful, and it has resulted in arrests. So,
yeah, no, I'm aware of that, and it's just that I don't want to get into a position where we're forming vigilante groups and we're doing jobs for the police or putting ourselves in positions where actually we don't want to be in those types of positions.
Vigilante at all. It's just you know, they're passing on information, and that's all. But there's no, they don't take action. It's just information, and it's passed to the police, and it's just raising awareness of different issues that are going on in the road.
Yeah, and so I think that's kind of what we're, you know, kind of really interested in once we do get information to the police, what the results are really, and that's kind of obviously something that we need to know, and obviously hopefully you can share that once you do get those statistics.
I would just say that, sorry, I didn't catch your name, sir.
It's Mohammed Zahir.
Mohammed, hi, Mohammed Zahir. Hi, Zahir. Yeah, I mean, in terms of those statistics, they would normally be available on the police.gov UK website, broken down by ward across the West Midlands, in terms of, you know, violent crime, burglary, antisocial behaviour, and so on. There is currently a problem with that data being downloaded onto the police.gov UK website. And there has been since about March a problem with that as a consequence of West Midlands Police moving to a different platform called Connect, and as a consequence of that data has not been downloaded by ward area since March. It is something that I'm currently taking up on a regular basis with the Chief Constable, because it is something that does need to be resolved as soon as possible, because that data would normally be available to the general public on a regular monthly basis, and it isn't at the moment, which is a source of frustration. I've certainly had some feedback from people who are involved in Neighbourhood Watch, for example, who aren't able to access that data. And I know there are efforts being made to correct that situation as soon as possible, but at the moment there doesn't seem to be a deadline for doing so. But it is something that I will continue to press West Midlands Police about, so that we can try and resolve that that tech issue, and we can start getting that data regularly available month by month on a ward basis across the West Midlands on the nationalpolice.gov.uk website.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Can I just finally, obviously, I know you don't have the data at hand, but I was just wondering, like, in terms of reassurance, have we caught any of these recent kind of burglaries, or has anyone been caught, or has anyone been questioned or brought in regarding those recent kind of burglaries in the Hodge Hill area?
I'm aware that we have got some suspects for some of the offences, but as I said before, we are reviewing all the CCTV at the moment and looking for forensic opportunities. We have got some suspects. I'm not aware of any specifics with regards to arrests as yet. I'd have to follow that up for you.
Okay, that's
okay,
fine.
thank you, Mohammed.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'll move on now because I've got quite a few people waiting to ask questions. So can I take just Deshaun?
Yeah, sure. I just want to say, obviously, thank you for everyone for joining. I very much echo what Mohammed Zahir just said, especially with regards to obviously the burglaries and feeling unsafe at home. You know, my wife feels unsafe at home, but at the same time, she doesn't want to leave the house. To be honest, every night I'm expecting a burglary. That's my stance. But coming back to what you guys stated in terms of what's actually being done, the only thing that I really heard was burglary patrols. So what does this entail? What does this actually mean? And you said you've asked for more resources, but assuming we don't get the extra resources required, what else can or will the police be doing?
Okay, with regards to the first question, the patrols, obviously we look at to see if there's any crime patterns with regards to the offending, with regards to locations that are being committed, any types of offences. With regards to that, we will then fashion a patrol in and around, whether it be overt or covert policing. So there may be people going about doing patrols that will be plainclothes officers that you won't be aware of. So that may not provide you with reassurance, but it'll also keep us undercover when we're looking for specific things as well. And then you will also see people in uniform as well. So it's intelligence-led policing and based on the crime offending type.
Okay,
Sorry, what was it, with regards to the second part of the question, do you just want to repeat what else is going to be done?
Yeah. Effectively, that's what it was. What's been done with regards to, obviously, it was the first part was with regards to the second one was, if we don't get extra resources, what else is the police going to do?
I mean, as I said before, we have put in a bid. There are extra resources here and now. So there's extra teams who are being brought onto the Hodge Hill area, who are patrolling the area. So there are extra resources here and now. With regards to long-term investigation, I can't comment on that as to where Force CID are at with their specific investigations. But I do know that they have got suspects and they'll be putting things in place with regards to trying to apprehend them or to trying to disrupt them. But it's very early stages at the moment. So that's the process that's going to continue. But by all means, if we do catch people and do prosecute people, that'll be put out on social media.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Zishan. I'll move on now to, I've got a question that was put in the chat by Aisha. I'll just read it out to you.
I think, Diane, thank you. What I wanted to just add, Zahir and Zishan have asked similar things, to what I asked. So
Okay.
I just wanted, the only thing I actually wanted to know is, I work from home and I'm concerned and worried that my house could be the next target. It could be my neighbours, it could be my elderly neighbours next door. I'm concerned about their welfare, my own, my child's, and my friends and family that live in this area. What happens? What is the process? So if my house is attacked or targeted or somebody else's, what's the process that the police follow and what is the timescale on that? So if somebody does experience something like that, how does it work? What are we expecting from you so we are aware of what the expectation is from the police, so that we're not left in like limbo or anything like that, where we're thinking, oh, do I need to start chasing this up? Do I need a crime reference number? What do I do next? Who's going to call me? So can you just explain the process of how you respond to local kind of targeted burglaries or attempted burglaries? And then my other question is around the awareness raising around violence against girls and women, and what the local response is. Whilst I understand the national and international, because I do a lot of work around this area, is what would you do on a local level? Just now, my daughter actually went around the corner to a nail parlour just on Bucklands End, and I was actually standing outside, and this gentleman, I don't know why I'm calling him that, this man walked past, and he was like, you know, hissing at her and saying, oh, come here. And I couldn't believe it took him from walking past me to my daughter to do that and just escape. I'm just worried about, this is like young girls, women who want to go out and do what they have to do, just, just go to the local shop or something, but they just don't feel safe. And I don't think they should be feeling like that. I know it's a bigger issue. And I know you're doing a lot of work in terms of policing and raising awareness. But what on a local issue as a Hodge Hill resident, how am I going to feel safe to allow my daughter to be out? So I kind of brought together some of those things. My real concern is around reassurances. I just don't feel safe. And that's the bottom line from my perspective as a resident of Hodge Hill. And whilst I know you all do good things in your place and you've got, intelligence-led work and etc. and all of that kind of stuff, for me if you contextualize it, what's going on, what is being done about these issues? I'm concerned there's burglaries. If I'm hearing that, and like Zahir said, WhatsApp groups and Birmingham Mail, and I'm part of the WM now, I think that's really useful. I really like that. And, I think the information that comes from the police from there is really useful. So that's good feedback for the police, because that really raises awareness and we kind of talk about it through that, which is really good. But what can we do to keep safe? I'm really concerned about my safety and others around me in this Hodge Hill area at the moment. Thank you.
Do you want me to come in on obviously there was quite a lot sort of asked there with quite a few questions. I can come in on the specific process with regards to a police response.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I mean, I can answer that part for you.
Yes,
obviously, every call is graded. So call handler will take it. It will get graded. Due to what the person calling has said, it will be given a grading. If it's deemed to be an immediate job, a P1, such as a home invasion, then we have protocols with regards to our response to that. Relevant resource would be found, and then they would attend the job as quick as they possibly could within the parameters of getting there from wherever they're coming from. And then it will be a case of securing and preserving evidence, obviously trying to detain any persons at the scene if there was anyone there, arrest any offenders. It will be then a process of completing the primary investigation with regards to speaking to any witnesses, as I said, arresting any potential offenders, gathering any evidence. If there was nobody arrested there and then, it would then potentially go on to a secondary investigation where it gets passed on to an investigation team. So the response officers would attend initially. They would do the primary part of the investigation, all the evidence gathering. It would then get passed on to 4CID investigation team, It would have a look at it to see if it was part of a pattern. The secondary part of the investigation would then take place. And that's a sort of broad overview of how that would be responded to with regards to a burglary or a home invasion. Is there anything that you want to sort of...
In terms of timescale, what's the response rate? So what's the timescale? So it depends on the grading, does it?
Well, no, it depends on a number of factors, if I'm honest. It mainly depends on what resources we have available. It's quite a regular occurrence, and I'll be honest with you, that we will have a number of immediate jobs outstanding. It's as simple as that. You know, we could have, depending on who's busy with what resources we have, we could have a number of P1s stacked up, a number of immediate jobs, and they get resourced as and when they can. If it can't be resourced by a response, then other departments will be pulled in to see if they're available to resource it, and that's the process. Before austerity, you will be looking at, you know, and before sort of reform within the police, you'd probably be looking at 10 minutes for response times. But with the larger geographical areas and the centralisation, sometimes that can be a lot longer these days, and that's the reality of the situation.
Steve, I've noticed that they pull in resources, the police pull in resources from other parts of the city, and we've even had police in attendance from Coventry. It's happened on quite a few occasions now.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, the problem that you've got as well with you've got a large influx of student officers coming in now, so they're all sort of an early stage of training and their knowledge within the police. You've, as you mentioned before, we've got a new computer system as well. We also have ethical criming as well. So now everything that gets reported, if it can't be negated, it has to be recorded. That takes up valuable officer time. Whereas officers could be out on the street, they have to come back into the stations now to record those incidents, whether it be a hearsay offence or not. It has to be recorded if we can't negate it, and that takes officers off the street, and that's why things are slowing down.
Looks like a bit of an administrative issue then, isn't it, in terms of recording crimes and local issues. Okay, and in terms of like I was talking about violence against women and girls, in terms of sexual assaults and things like that, what's that kind of like, what's that kind of, how's that represented in this area? Is it, you know, have there been reports or of anything of that nature? Or
I'm not aware of any particular spike in crime against females specifically. There is a spike in hate crime, but nothing specifically against women. But I think we're looking at a broader societal issue at the moment that I think everyone's aware of in the media that's sort of been heightened around violence against women and you know, women not feeling safe on the street. The reality of the situation is that the streets have never been completely safe, and no one's safe to just walk about and do whatever they want to do. You know, unfortunately, there are individuals out there who will do things, and you know, we're doing our best to try and control that. But I think it's part of a wider issue.
okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Aisha. I've got other people that are waiting to come in. I've got Sobia and then Majid. And Sobia?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello. Yeah, evening. I'm the daughter of the female who was burgled on Eastbourne Avenue about a week and a half ago. And I must admit, I was absolutely appalled with the service that the police provided. And the reason why I say this is because the actual day of the incident, when 4 masked male attempted to gain entry into the address, one successfully did enter and assaulted my mum, whereas the other 3 were disturbed and made off. Now, the police were informed before the offenders made off because my sister-in-law, who lives across the road, alerted the police before the offenders were alerted. So the response time in that was very, very poor, I'd say. But appreciate there's an issue regarding the geographical area and whether the officers were probably, you know, a bit too far out on Eastbourne Avenue. But however, when the one offender came in, seriously assaulted my mum, officers managed to get to the address, but all 4 offenders made off. One made off on foot. So he's managed to travel on Eastbourne on foot down to Westbourne, cross the road over to Coleshill Road into the new estate, and there was no sighting of him. So the police are saying we've lost him. Okay, so the officers turned up to the address, did their basic inquiries, like Steve just mentioned, the primary investigation. So then I provided my contact number, and literally a couple of hours later, I get a call from a male to say, can you bring your mum into Stetchford Police Station for a statement? Well, no, because she's a victim of crime, a very, very serious crime. I think the police should have allowed at least an option to say, do you want us to come to your address? Right, that wasn't done. So I've then had to put my foot down and said, no, she's not coming to Stetchford. You are coming to her home address. So they've said, OK, well, we'll confirm that before 10 o'clock, because that's the time the interpreter was booked for. So I didn't get any sort of confirmation, come at 9:30. So here I am thinking, where am I going to go? So I've then managed to get a mobile number for this officer to call him up to confirm where are we meeting. So eventually we met at my mum's address, because he answered and said, oh yeah, we're coming to your mum's, but clearly that wasn't relayed. But this is where the disappointment lays. The disappointment lays the fact that no crime reference number was given. So I don't know what happened to your victim's code of contact. No victim support was offered. The interpreter took the statement, not the police officer, which again is not part of West Midlands Police policy. And the thing that really, really absolutely shocked me was the fact that this crime has been classified as an assault with intent to rob. Why on earth has it been classified as that? It's someone entered my mum's house. That is outright burglary. It is not assault with intent to rob. So can you, Steve, please answer this question for me? Is West Midlands Police dodging figures in order to make it look like that there's no burglary in the area?
Obviously, I can't specifically speak for the organisation to say that there's any figure fudging going on. The problem that we've got at the moment is that when officers record incidents, they're going through the new system, which brings down a tree. You go through various question sets, which will then come up with an offence. If it's been recorded as that, I mean, I'm in agreement with you. Do we know if there are any weapons used with regard to that?
Yes. There were weapons used on the CCTV, which I'm not sure you've viewed. You can see clearly a baton, one of the lads hiding a baton. The chap that was inside the house had cable ties. He was about to wrap these around my mum's hand.
We're looking at an aggravated burglary. We're looking at
you are, yes, that's according to the definition.
Yeah,
according to the tree of your new system, that's classed as an assault with intent to rob. It's not assault with intent to rob.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement with you. It's an aggravated burglary. However, I can't specifically comment on why it was recorded as that. There may be other parameters that I'm not aware of, so I can't specifically comment on that. Based on what you've told me, sounds like an aggravated burglary. I can look into it for you, not a problem.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that. And also, I'd like to know who the officer in the case is. No contact's been made over a week and a half. Not only that, I've not seen any police presence except for yesterday. And I know you're saying they might be in plain clothes, but surely if an aggravated burglary has taken place, the priority lies on that street at least with visible presence as opposed to covert presence, because we need visible officers on the street. Like I said, in a week and a half, we didn't see anyone.
There would be both. Sorry, what you saying?
We were doing street watch.
Yeah, there was yesterday. Yeah, there was a street watch.
Yeah, yesterday, because my dad spoke to someone yesterday. So this incident happened a week and a half ago on a Thursday. So no officers were there except for yesterday. Well, that's not a massive deterrent, is it?
I know, but as I said, there will be officers patrolling that you may not see, specifically when you're looking out your window. As I said, I can just pass on what I've been told in the fact that we have put in for extra resources. There are current extra resources patrolling those areas, whether it be overt and covert as well. So I appreciate you're not happy, but what I can do is I can put my contact details in the message chat, and then you can pass me over any details you want, and I'll look into it for you.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that. And not only that, can you please make some inquiries in relation to this tree system of yours, as to how and why has this particular crime been crimed as an assault with intent to rob? Because surely, I know you said you've got tree system, but that itself, if I know some of the members asked about stats and stuff. So if that is the case, and if your tree system is going around, classifying burglary as an assault with intent to rob, then I'd be raising questions as to the system, whether it's working or not. So that's my main concern. I want this to be looked into and hopefully reclassified as a burglary, because it falls in the definition of a burglary. And I think we should adhere to that as opposed to following a tree system that West Midlands Police follows.
I completely agree with you.
Thank you.
I would just add, I've put in the chat a link to the Victims Code of Practice. It may well be that you're already familiar with that, but I've put the link in the chat box if people want to check that out, because that does set out the list of rights that you have as a victim, both in terms of the service that you can expect from the police and within the criminal justice system in the wider sense, and in terms of the services that you may be able to access as a victim of crime. And as Police and Crime Commissioner, I do commission all the victim services across the West Midlands. That's £3.4 million worth of victim services. So please do check out the Victims Code, and by all means check out the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner website, because you may well be entitled, well, your mum might well be entitled to access support as a consequence of having been a victim of crime in these circumstances.
Thank you, Simon.
I was just going to say as well, yeah, it does appear that you know, apologies to your mum, it does appear that she's had a poor level of service there. It's certainly not something I'd want for my mother either, so I can only apologise for that. But I've got the crime number here, so I'm going to look into it and look into the OIC as well and speak to them and see what comes back. I've put my email in the chat, so by all means email me and we'll sort something out for you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sylvia. I hope your mum's getting over the incident. I've got a message here and it's saying, please remember not to share personal details as the meeting is being recorded. So this will be viewed by the public. So just be aware that it's not wise to share your personal details. And also for reporting crime, I don't know if any of you are aware of live chat, which is probably a better way of reporting crime than actually phoning 101. So I think I've tried it. When I've reported crimes on behalf of residents, I've used live chat at the same time I've been on the phone. And live chat, you get almost an instantaneous response. So the phone can take a lot longer. So I would advise that. Okay, thank you. I'm going to bring in Councillor Majid now, and then Nigel afterwards.
Yeah, thank you, Diane. I concur with Diane. The West Midlands Police Chat is actually a much better system to report criminal incidents that have taken place, because you get an immediate response and you've got the reassurance of speaking to someone who's working on behalf of the police, and will get back to you instantly in terms of the report, and you'll be able to get crime reference numbers, etc. I really sympathise hugely with Sylvia, and can only imagine the challenge in last week and a half the family have endured because of what happened. That particular incident has sent shivers down the spine of many residents, and I've been inundated since the incident took place. And as Zishan said, lots of families are really worried about being victims to burglary and other offences. And again, as someone who's practiced criminal law and, you know, previously has defended a number of defendants, I find incredibly hard to believe that the crime wasn't listed as aggravated burglary. Aggravated burglary, for any criminal lawyer will tell you, it's an individual who enters the property with a weapon illegally with an intention to steal. That's exactly what happened. Their intention there was to steal. They even had those tie cables. So you can just, you know, thank you so much to the neighbours and the people living on the road. And there's some builders as well who participated in helping to. It's a shame they never caught any of the criminals, because if they did, then hopefully that would have been the end of the matter. But I have, myself and the MP, Liam Byrne, we have spoken and received a response from the Inspector, Barry Marnell, who was actually a former ward sergeant for the Hodge Ward a few years back. So he knows the area really, really well. And you know, perhaps at a future meeting, we could invite him to the ward forum. And he has reassured us of plainclothes patrols happening. Obviously, intelligence is such that we can't really share all the details with members of the public, but just to let you know, there is some work being done. And I've always been I've never been a huge fan of street patrols with the police, because I've always said that is the job of the police. But to be perfectly honest, with what's happened now in the last 2 months or 3 months in the area, something that I've been in discussions with the police officers today, even last night, that we should try to increase them, and I will be trying to organise some street watches with the police around parts of the ward where there is, a challenge in terms of what's happened before. Because I know over the last 2 weeks, I've been reported at least 7 burglaries just to me from residents: Maryland Avenue, Ashby Close, Bucklands End Lane, Eastbourne Avenue. On Eastbourne Avenue, a few days after we had that incident, there was also a theft of a catalytic converter, and that's something that I've drawn to the attention of both the police and of the city council in trying to tackle, because we had a really bad incident of that about a year ago on Ryman Road as well. That's something that we do need to look to. What did used to work, and I think a couple of the residents have said, what can we do? What we used to have a few years before was neighbourhood monthly tasking meetings. So you had your councillors, you had members of the fire service, the police, and other various council departments who we could bring in to basically list the incidents that have been occurring in the ward, and then having an action on how to deal with that. So, for example, if we were told a neighbour tasking me to, it would be around the burglaries, because we have seen a spike in the burglaries, then we can take out some actions in terms of how we're going to assist each other in trying to prevent that and seek reassurance for residents. When I first got elected to the council 10 years ago, makes me sound old now, we were told then that there was more than 500 police officers in the Hodge constituency. So that includes Bromford and Hodge Hill, Ward End, Alum Rock, Shard End, Smallheath, Bordsley Green. Last time I checked facts in terms of the number of police officers, it's over 100. So you can see how many police officers we've lost. We've lost more or less 400 police officers plus in the constituency. So it's not the fault of the police. You guys, you put your lives at risk on a daily basis. We're not taking anything away from you guys, but we do need help in terms of, we do need to reassure the public. So I'm willing to offer to participate in street watches. And so I should just put in the question about police officers funding. It's simple. The funding has gone, and there was the Section 20 process where lots of, I think it was any police officer was serving for 20 years plus was made redundant, and that had a massive impact, not just on losing police officers, but also losing expertise that had been built up by those police officers, because they've been working in the profession for so many years. They were best placed. But I do know Simon Foster has got a plan to recruit more police officers, and hopefully some of them will come within our constituency and ward. And also the bid that the Inspector Marnell told myself about was a bid for additional resources to support the patrol activity. Now, if we as residents offer our assistance as volunteers, because effectively that would be volunteers, we would expect some form of funding to assist with having some police officers doing the street watches with us, so that we can give that reassurance to the public as well. Also, just need a reassurance today from Simon that there's no plans to close either the Stetchford police station and the Shard End police station. If we could have that assurance today. And just in terms of the questions that have arisen around the highway measures, has a ward, Bromford and Hodge ward, we receive £18,000 a year for minor highway measures, plus another £2,000 a year for disabled bays. So it's £20,000, which seems like a lot of money, but seriously, that is not a lot of money. That just about pays for 2, sometimes 2.5 pedestrian islands. So over the last few years, I'll give you examples. On the Heathway, we've installed pedestrian islands in order to reduce the traffic, reduce the speed on cars. Stetchford Road, there's plans in progress now. We're just waiting for the contractors to get back to us. There are plans to install 2 pedestrian islands. On Colesey Road, that's a strategic route. Strategic routes, we have to get the consent of the police, the fire service, and the ambulance in order to install pedestrian islands. So it's a bit more tricky dealing with Colesey Road. But what we have done, Bromford Road, we installed 3 just last year. We prioritise the roads where there is footfall to the local schools. So Heathway, you've got Heartlands, Stetchford Road, you've got Colborne, and Bromford Road, you've got 4 schools there, Hodge Hill Primary, Hodge Hill College, Hodge Hill Girls, and the Braidwood school as well, which is behind the 3 main schools. And obviously that money also includes money that we have for installing raised curbs and grass verges. Again, it's not enough money, but myself and Diane are lobbying the cabinet member to increase that funding. We're trying to get a pot of money from the clean air zone penalties that people are paying, so we can bring that back into the ward to assist. And nationally, we're waiting on legislation for the government to act in terms of being able to penalise people who inconsiderately park on grass verges. And the reason that's important is because once you stop people inconsiderately parking, you may stop some of these thefts around catalytic converters, because all the neighbours will know one another on the street, so they can help each other. And the final thing I was going to mention, because I think Aisha mentioned this about victims support, etc., and Simon's flagged that up as well. I know Simon Foster has appointed a victims commissioner, Councillor Nicky Brennan, who is a colleague of ours on the City Council. And I'm sure if we invited Nicky to a future ward forum meeting, she could actually speak to residents around the support that is available to victims across the area. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Majid. Okay. Is there anything that Steve or Simon you'd like to add to that?
I mean, I can give you an update in connection with the police station position, if that would be helpful, Majid.
Yeah, please, if you can, because Stetchford and Shardent serve the residents of Bromford and Hodge Hill.
Yeah, so there was a paper that was brought before the Strategic Policing and Crime Board, which is the board that I convene in order to help hold the West Midlands Police to account, and we've taken 2 papers in relation to the estate strategy review that I commenced following my election. There was a paper that was brought on the 28th of September to review the estate strategy that was originally in place from March 2018. And I asked the Chief Constable to conduct a new review of the estate strategy for a number of reasons. I mean, firstly, given the fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic. Secondly, because of the police uplift that is taking place between 2020 and 2023, that will see the recruitment of a net additional 1,200 police officers in the West Midlands. I mean, that won't make up for the 2,221 we lost, but that will be the net uplift that we'll get by 2023. And the report that was brought before the Strategic Policing and Crime Board on the 28th of September set out the basic principles to be applied by the force in relation to the review of the estate strategy. And then on Tuesday, 23rd of November, we had a further paper that was presented to the board, which was applying those 11 principles to the individual buildings within the estate. So the position in connection with the 2 police stations that you referred to, Majid, is that as far as Stetchford is concerned, Stetchford is to be retained. It's going to be refurbished. It's going to provide a venue for multiple corporate functions within West Midlands Police. It'll have a public contact police presence as it currently does, and it'll have the neighbourhood teams housed there within that venue, and response will remain on site. And the projected delivery date for that refurbishment is by spring 2024. So that's the position in connection with Stetchford. I think my recollection is that originally in the March 2018 review, I think Stetchford was possibly not going to be a response venue. But anyway, the response venues have been increased from what would have been 6 throughout the West Midlands back in March 2018. It's now been increased to 8. But in any event, Stetchford will be retaining its response operation. As far as Shard End is concerned, I mean, there's no change in relation to Shard End as per the March 2018 estate strategy. The March 2018 estate strategy, which predates my election as West Midlands Police Crime Commissioner by quite some way, was that Shard End was due for disposal as a police station, and that remains the case. However, I do emphasise that the neighbourhood policing team will be co-located locally in the area, and I can assure you that there is a safeguard built into this to the extent that Shard End will not be disposed of until I am satisfied that that there's a suitable alternative location for the local neighbourhood team to be co-located locally. We don't have identified a particular building for that at the moment, but we'll be looking at that. The date for disposal currently is summer of 2024. But as I say, it'll be our intention to seek to co-locate the neighbourhood housing, the neighbourhood team within the area in a suitable alternative venue. That might be another public building. For example, we've co-located throughout the West Midlands with West Midlands Fire Service in about half a dozen locations across the West Midlands now successfully. In Walsall, for example, the local team have co-located within the central Walsall Council building, for example. So that's the plan as far as Shard End is concerned.
Can I come in on that, please, Simon?
Yeah.
I was at a meeting last week with the leader, Councillor Ian Ward, and Sergeant Ben Goldsmith, and they spoke of, or the leader spoke of using the Shard End Library as an alternative venue for the police. How would that work in terms of opening hours?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess the detail around that will need to be investigated. I mean, my view would be that, well, I mean, Shard End is not currently a public contact police station in any event, Diane.
Yes, I realise that.
So the opening hours issue is perhaps not. But
he was spoke of as being.
Yeah, well, indeed. I mean, you know, for example, that
open to the public. Yeah.
What
I mean, the youth as it is now will probably be located elsewhere, but as a police presence for the public, that's what.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is that, I mean, there are certain basic requirements we need to put in place in terms of identifying suitable alternatives for co-location. So, I mean, obviously the police do have some quite specific requirements if they're going to recite neighbourhood teams in particular areas, particularly around the kit that they've got, you know, particularly in terms of, you know, potentially body-worn video camera tech that needs to be installed around that, you know, places to keep tasers and other equipment that the police need for operational day-to-day policing. So there do need to be, you know, appropriate provision made for that if in connection with whatever co-located public building we might identify. So, you know, there is a process around all of this. But as I say, the bottom line is, notwithstanding that Shard End Police Station will be disposed of, it won't be disposed of until until I'm satisfied that there's been a suitable alternative co-location, probably within another public building, to ensure that the neighbourhood policing team can be retained within the local community.
And what is the time frame on that?
Time frame for disposal at the moment is not before summer of 2024.
Okay, thank you, Simon. Thank you. I'm just going to bring in, before I bring in Nigel and Lisa, who are going to ask questions, I'll just refer to this one. Simon, if you can answer, why have we lost so many police officers?
Well, yeah, well, I mean, I can give you an answer to that. I mean, the fact of the matter is that between 2010 and 2019, West Midlands Police had imposed on them £175 million worth of funding cuts. The consequence of that was that we lost 2,221 of our police officers. We lost 300 police community support officers. We lost hundreds of essential police staff throughout that period of time. So, I mean, the truth of the matter is that it was as a consequence of ill-advised, misconceived and poor decision-making, in my view, on the part of central government. And as I say, I think it was a big mistake. I think it was counterproductive. It was a false economy. And frankly, we're all been paying the price, as is amply apparent from the conversation during this Ward Forum meeting. These experiences that local residents have are the consequences of that decision making on the part of central government.
Thank you, Simon. Okay, so next is Nigel. Would you like to come in, Nigel?
Yeah, just want to pick up on a couple of things. Firstly, I would just be rather concerned about the visibility. If we're getting rid of police stations, that I think the visibility of having a police station is a positive thing. And I think if we're closing them, not only is it, you know, we're obviously doing that to save money, but this lack of visibility is just an ongoing problem. If we make that worse, I think we need to just be aware that maybe we need to increase the visibility in signage or something, so that people feel reassured that there is still something out there.
What I would mention? Sorry, go on. Yeah, but, I mean, I can come back on. By all means, finish your point if you have anything else to say. Sorry.
Yeah, just interested in street watch, street patrols. Clearly, I mean, I do appreciate that, you know, the police are doing very overstretched, and I don't want this to sound like we're just having a go at them because they're not doing their job. I completely understand, but our frustrations are our frustrations. And we need to look at other ways that we can resolve this as a community and working together with the council and with the police. Is there other ways that we could look at for reporting intelligence other than going through this live chat, which I find painful, to be perfectly honest? 101, they don't answer the phone. Live chat is very time consuming and painful. A lot of crimes and a lot of intelligence is not being reported. I appreciate what Steve said, but personally, if I reported everything that I saw, I would be on the phone or on live chat all the time because there's just so much of it. Is there a better way for us to report intelligence and suspicious behaviour, like the lady said about you know, it was just somebody in a shopping centre that preyed on a girl, but it didn't get reported. There's lots of things like that that don't get reported, and that obviously doesn't help the situation. I wonder if there's something we can look at which is a better way of reporting. And also these street patrols, if there's something that we can do as residents or work with people, work with the council, there has to be other ways that we can do this, because otherwise, if we keep saying the police are rubbish, the police are rubbish, we're not going to go anywhere, because they're overstretched and under-resourced, and we need to get on board with that and look at other ways of doing things.
I can certainly deal with the first part of your comments, Nigel. I mean, the fact of the matter is that, yeah, sadly, for the last decade or so, we haven't had a central government that believes in and is prepared to invest in local community police stations. That's why nationally, that 600 police stations have closed across the country. That's the reality of the situation. In the event that we co-locate, for example, in relation to Shard End, as just discussed. I mean, it would be my view that we should ensure that there is the relevant signage in whatever building that we co-locate with, in order to specifically identify that property as not only, for example, a community fire station, but also we have the appropriate signage so that people can identify it as a police station as well. And I completely agree with you about the visibility. I mean, that's why my key core campaign pledge throughout my campaign was about rebuilding community policing, because as I mentioned in my opening comments, back in 2010 we had 1,800 police officers allocated to community policing, and then by 2018 we only had about 700 officers in community policing. We lost over 50% of police officers allocated to community policing in the West Midlands, and that is exactly why we need that preventative, problem-solving, proactive, visible community policing, and that's why I'm determined to rebuild it. And that's why of the next 1,200 uplift that we're going to see between 2020 and 2023, I want 450 of those officers to be allocated to community policing.
How many of those will we receive in Hodge Hill?
Well, I couldn't give you a specific number at the moment, Diane, but I can assure you Bromford and Hodge Hill will be getting its fair share of those community police officers for sure.
Thank you. Right. Thank you, Nigel. I hope that's answered your question.
Well, it didn't
Lisa,
answer the last couple. But...
Sorry, what was that?
I think Nigel had also made a point about the difficulty of reporting crime.
Better
to
ways for us to report if we're going off intelligence, yeah.
I don't know if he wants me to come in there. Obviously, we've got the normal ways of reporting on the telephone. I appreciate you don't want to be on the telephone and say you'd be on there all the time. There is online reporting as well, Crime Stoppers. You can walk into a police station. I appreciate that's not an option every day, but you can do web chats online and report incidents. Are you aware of that?
Yes, absolutely, but I find it tedious because you're on. If I was on live chat every time I saw something, then I'd be on it, every couple of hours. Whereas if it's just intelligence, like saying, I don't know, photographs of speeding cars or something which can just go onto the statistics without you guys having to fill forms in and it becoming a whole tedious thing. We need to be able to give you the stats and give you what's actually going on.
The reality is there's always going to be a formal process with regards to reporting crime, us receiving it and then following protocol. That's just the way it goes. Obviously, we've got pace that we have to adhere to, so there's certain things that we're bound by. There's so many ways to report it, and there's so many ways that we can receive it. We're always open to suggestion if you've got anything further, a better way of reporting or a thing that would be easier for members of the public.
I'm thinking probably more of intelligence as opposed to specifically crimes and that sort of thing, because I mean we see it in the avenues. People park up in their cars, they're drinking bottles of vodka overnight, and we find these balloon canisters all over the place, and it happens overnight, and it's not a crime. We can't say it's a crime, but it happens every night, and it's that kind of intelligence. Is there a way that we can perhaps communicate that better?
Nigel, if you want to refer any details over to me, I'm in constant contact with the PCOs, and I'm able to feed back information to them if that makes life easier for you.
Okay.
Diane, just on that, just to let people know that we did hold a police surgery on Bromford Drive 2 weeks ago, yes. And the plan is to work with the police to hold pop-up surgeries around the ward, as together with the street watches and the speed watches. So it's something that we're going to be more heavily involved with officers, and then we'll try to get something really on Eastbourne Avenue, Westbourne Avenue.
Okay, thank you, Majid. Anything else, Nigel, before I hand over to Lisa?
Oh, no, I think I've said enough. Thank you very much. Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you. Thank you. Lisa, good evening.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, am I there?
Yes, yeah, we can hear you, Lisa.
Right. Apologies if this has already been covered, but I had trouble joining the meeting in the first instance. I mean, obviously, as a local resident, I'm very, very concerned about the amount of burglaries that I'm hearing that are happening too close to home without any underestimation. And I just want to know what we're doing to try and combat that, if anything, as police and as residents ourselves. And also, with regard to reporting crime, forgive me for being flippant, but if somebody is entering my property, I'm in no fit state to be going on live chat, having a little chat with someone, because at the end of the day, you know, I live alone, Diana. You know, it's absolutely, it's frightening the life out of them. Yeah, you know, to be honest with you, I think the whole thing, it is absolutely frightening me half to death, along with a lot of people who live alone as well. You know, I haven't seen any police around here lately. That's not to say that you're not here. You might be in plain clothes for all I know. I just don't know. So, you know, I just kind of want to know what we're trying to do. I mean, the local church was done 3 nights running in the last week. 3 nights running. Can you believe it? They come back 3 nights. And and I understand that we've still got more burglaries since then. So, you know, whether this is happening all over the place, I really don't know. I'm not really familiar with it, but as someone living alone, it's just extremely terrifying. Really, that's all.
Yeah, I can imagine a lot of people who are living alone do feel vulnerable. But live chat is not for use for emergencies. Use 999.
So what do we do? Just 999.
999. If you're in any, if you know, there's someone trying to enter your property, 999 straight away. But you know, to pass smaller offences that are not life threatening, then live chat or you know, the other means. WM now.
Right. So what are we trying to address then in terms of trying to combat this problem, or haven't we got a solution with this whole, you know, increase in burglaries in this area?
Good night, Steve. Would you like to come in on this one?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think we did cover quite a bit of this prior to you sort of being on the chat. So
apologies, I couldn't get on.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just repeat what I said before, in the fact that there are extra resources in the area. We have put extra bids in with regards to other departments joining the area. 4CID are sort of conducting their investigations at the moment, and we're looking at crime patterns at the moment to try and identify suspects and offenders, and then obviously bring them to justice, going through the normal processes that we do day to day. We are aware of it. We are trying to tackle it. You won't always see what we're doing, and we appreciate that, but there are extra patrols in place currently.
Right, okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Lisa. I just responding to Mo, who's had difficulty logging on, so did Lisa. The links are checked. We've checked them, Beverly's checked them, Madge's checked them. Sometimes when it's the first time that you log on, you may need to try again a couple of times before. I don't know if it's a Microsoft issue, whatever it is, but the links are checked. So, but pleased to see that you both managed to get in eventually. And once you've logged in once, I think the next time it becomes much easier. Okay, thanks, Majid. You said the link wasn't working, but the link on the website was not working.
Yeah, it wasn't working for some reason, and then I've had to like for example with Lisa, I had to send the link. I posted it on Twitter, the link that was WhatsApp to me. But we can do that in future. I mean, if we've got everyone's email address, we can send them the link anyway using the email.
Can I just jump in there, Councillor Mahmood, and because I set the meetings up and put it all on the website. I think what sometimes happens when you put things on our website, it automatically converts it to a PDF, and I don't think you can pick things up that well from a PDF document. So I tend to send it out, the link out in Word. So if people want to email me, I've got my email address in the chat. I've got a mailing list, so you'll always get the details in Word, not in a PDF document, because sometimes PDFs, it's just quite difficult to pick up the link. So
Okay.
I'll always send it out in Word.
Thanks, Bev. That's
Okay.
explained it. Thank you. Okay. Right, so I don't see any more hands up. Is there anybody else? Councillor Majid, you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a couple of things just to finish off. Obviously, people need reassurance around Bromford and Hodge in terms of the work being undertaken by the police to prevent burglaries with the dark nights. It happens everywhere, not just in Bromford and Hodge. When you have dark nights, then you tend to have more burglaries, attempted burglaries. There was, about 12, 13 years ago, before I was a councillor, there was a proposal to have CCTV across most parts of the city, including Bromford and Hodge, but that didn't materialise. Perhaps that's something that could be revisited by the Police Crime Commissioner's Office, and working with the police and with the council. I know there's some issues around GDPR data with the recent legislation, but that can be overcome because it is happening in other parts of the country. Secondly, it's something that everyone is asking around the classification of crimes. Is that still with the inspectors, or does that go through to the CPS now to classify crime? I'm not really sure, because I know there's been changes happening quite often around that. And the third thing that I think people are seeking is information around the criminal statistics and how we can compare to other areas, and to ensure that Bromford and Hodge is getting its fair share of policing resources. For example, Steve has mentioned that there's a bid being put in for additional resources to support the patrol activity. So does that go to the Commissioner's Office, or does that go to the Chief Constable? Then, myself as a councillor and residents, what can we do to try to support that bid to go through, so that we can get the resources coming through to our area?
Thank you, Majid. I know a lot of areas in the south of England fare better than we do for police numbers. Simon, are you able to elaborate on that?
But what, in terms of allocation of police numbers across the country? Well, no, I mean, proportionately, that's undoubtedly the case. As I mentioned before, we have a fundamentally unfair funding formula that is unfit for purpose, and it disproportionately disadvantages the West Midlands to the tune of up to £40 million a year, quite frankly. And I mean, another point of note is that although, notwithstanding the police uplift in the West Midlands between 2020 and 2023, which will result in an additional net uplift of 1,200 police officers, as I say, not replacing the 2,221 lost. But will be 1,000 officers down.
Put their microphones on mute, please, because the speakers. Thank you.
We'll still be 1,000 officers down by 2023, but there are other areas in the country that have got more police officers than they've ever had in their history. Warwickshire and Kent, to name but two. I forget the political complexion of those two areas as compared to the West Midlands.
I'm sure quite well as well. I think Surrey does quite well at more policing numbers as well.
Yeah. I mean, with all due respect to those areas, in my respectful submission, I don't think they have quite the challenges that the West Midlands has. We'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
I don't know if you wanted me to come in on a local level with regards to those questions of how is crime recorded and how resources allocated.
Yes, please do. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, prior to sort of the new system coming in, it would be done via a crime service team. So an officer would ring up, they would give a description of the particulars of the offence, and the crime service team would qualify as to what particular crime that would be, and it would be recorded as such. Now how it works is down to the individual officer recording that incident, going through the tree, going through the matrix. However, that should always be reviewed by a supervisor. It's down to the supervisor to review that particular log, review that crime, and make sure it's recorded effectively. So we are getting individual officers now recording their own crimes. However, a supervisor should always be reviewing it. With regards to sort of allocation on a local level, obviously we have senior management meetings, TRM meetings every day, which review the incidents locally, and if there are any additional resources or any spikes in particular crimes, then that will be addressed and resources will be allocated accordingly. So I think that sort of gives you a broad overview of what happens on a local level.
Thank you, Steve. Just a couple of points I wanted to raise. Can we send out information to all the people that are present about Street Watch, and if they can encourage people to join Street Watch? If we had a Street Watch on every street, it would make a big improvement.
Yeah, I'll ask Sarah to come in on this one because they do the Street Watches, and Maggie.
So Street Watch is just high visibility patrols around your local area, looking for low-level antisocial behaviour, any suspicious cars, and just being a visible deterrent on the streets in high vis.
So that just like the one that we did yesterday around the hotspot areas that the residents told us about. So one of the ladies that spoke today said she saw us yesterday. So it's being visible in the areas that are hotspots at the moment.
My email address is in the chat, so if anybody does want to join, just drop me an email and we can pass your details over to the relevant departments, get you signed up.
Right. I think we've got a new Street Watch, or maybe a couple of new Street Watches lately.
Yes. Yeah, we've got 2 new ones.
That's brilliant. Okay. Thank you. And another thing, PCSOs, I know you're going to hate me now for saying this, but they finish at 9 o'clock in the evening. Is there any way they could work later?
PCSOs finish at 11.
11? Oh, sorry.
Yes, finish 11 here.
It was 9 o'clock, forgive me. Okay. No, it's because Street Watch, I was thinking about organising Street Watches that could run a bit later in the evening, because there are issues sort of in the avenues where there are cars congregating, they're using the silver canisters, and maybe a Street Watch, presence in the area later on in the evening would be more beneficial.
I'm sure that will be
perhaps a Sunday morning Street Watch.
I'm sure we can arrange that.
Okay, brilliant. All right. Thank you. Check the chat. Yeah, so Beverly's got, she'll send out any information. She'll pass it on to people's emails. And Sarah's put her email address in the chat. So if you want to take her email address, then you can email her directly. Have we got any more questions from residents? No, I think we've all gone quiet. Right, well, thank you, Simon, and thank you for coming along this evening. We've really appreciated it, and it's been really informative. And
that's a pleasure.
Yeah, and keep up the good work. And thank you, Steve, and the PCSOs. I know you face we realise the challenges you're facing, but it is frustrating for the residents. Yeah, but you're
absolutely not a problem at all. I can assure everyone that we just want to do our job on a day-to-day basis. We want to have the ability to go out there and protect the public and do what we need to do, but it can be challenging.
It is challenging, yeah, we appreciate that. But if we could have you more, attend our ward forums, I don't say every month, but, maybe twice a year, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just stepping in for Barry Marnell today, so that's not a problem.
Okay, excellent. All right, and thank you everyone for attending. And if we can, get on board with some of the initiatives that have been mentioned this evening, I think it'd be really helpful. But thank you all for attending. I know you care about your area, and it's really good to see you here. And sorry about the technical issues that some of you have experienced. Well, thank you, and you enjoy the rest of your evening, and see you at future meetings, hopefully. Take care and stay safe.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.